We still don't know how it really started. What we know is that some manifestos appeared and we don't know who wrote them. Was it one person or many persons? And is this really true that is included in those manifestos? And the members, who were they? And are they still active? We don't know because all of them are keeping themselves hidden. Wait a second. Did I tell you what's the topic of today's video? Now, in today's video, I will be looking into the most mystical secret societies in this world. And no, I'm not talking about Illuminati. If we talk about Illuminati, then usually we get this kind of like negative vibes. Then this fraternity or order, call it as you wish, is more like esoteric, mystical, something spiritual. Yes, in today's video, I will be diving into Rosicrucians, also known as the Fraternity of Rosicrucians. If you haven't heard about them, I don't blame you because they are very secretive. And what we know is that they have existed for a long, long time, probably longer than we can even imagine. And yes, they are dealing with some spiritual things, and one of their main priorities was actually alchemy. In today's video, I will be looking into one of the main controversies in regards to Rosicrucians, namely the beginnings of Rosicrucians. Who was the person or persons who created the fraternity of the Rose Cross? Of course, once I dived into this topic, I realized that Rosicrucians is such a deep topic that I would be very happy to actually develop like series of videos dedicated to this order. But in order to do that, I have to start from the beginning. So in today's video, we're going to try and figure out how it all started because there are so many legends, so many myths we have to figure out if we can, of course. That being said, if these kind of topics are your cup of tea, then press that like in advance before I start. Share this video with anyone who would like to hear about this topic, and also drop me a comment because this helps the development of my channel. And if you want to support me even more with, let's say, some money, then here's the link to my Patreon. Not obligatory, but if you wish, it would really help. As you can see, I'm now in an improvised studio. The studio that I'm making is still in the making, so I will be trying to do my best with the setting that I have right now. Probably I'm having a little echo. I will try to reduce it as much as I can. And now let's dive into the beginnings of Rosicrucians. So I will be looking into several versions of how all of this started to appear on this earth, let me say like that. So this is the first version. It basically states that Rosicrucians exist, and you will understand what I mean by this statement by the end of this video. So the believers of this first version actually believe that the occurrence of the order started with the publication of a manifesto called Fama Fraternitatis. This manifesto supposedly was written in the year 1610, and it was not published until the year 1614. In total, there were several manifestos that were really important in regards to Rosicrucians themselves. People usually talk about 3 of them. We will also look into the rest of them. But this first one, Fama Fraternitatis, that I just mentioned, is considered the most crucial since it deals with the origins of the Fraternity of the Rose Cross. The manifesto actually starts with a reminder of God's mercy and warns the intellectuals that their egoism and greed is leading people to false prophets and turns them away from the true knowledge provided by the merciful God. The manifesto claims that all of this has created the demand for reformation, and God has moved philosophers and wise men to finally make this reformation to happen. then the document continues to explain that in order to make this reformation to happen, a man who was named in that document as Father CRC founded a secret society that would kind of help this reformation to happen. And this Father CRC can be considered as the founder of the Fraternity of the Rosicrucians. And this leads us to the first mystery, namely, who is this man named Father CRC who took on his shoulders this heavy burden to make this reformation to happen? Well, the manifesto says that Father CRC actually comes from a noble German family. However, he chose a different path of his life. He didn't want to be rich. He didn't want to be part of this noble family. He decided to live a very modest, actually poor person's life, and go completely other way that he was supposed to go as part of a noble family. Then the manifesto continues to tell a whole life story of Father CRC, namely what he experienced, what he went through up to the moment when he founded the Order of Rose Cross. And this story is very important because, it makes sense why at the end he decided to create this fraternity. The manifesto then tells that actually somehow Father CRC, when he was at the age of 5, ended up in a monastery. But while he was growing up, he was not really satisfied with the knowledge that he learned from the monks. And at one point, he decided to join a group of monks and go with them on a pilgrimage to a sacred land. During this pilgrimage, Father CRC had a companion, but somehow while they were in Cyprus, this companion died suddenly from some kind of illness, and this is when CRC is left completely alone. And at that point, he decides that, well, I will probably continue my trip and go to Damascus. At this point, while he was still in Damascus, CRC started to develop some health issues, and this is when he understands that he will probably not be physically able to continue his pilgrimage to Jerusalem, and he decides to stay in Damascus. There he was greeted and welcomed with open arms by the local wise men. So he basically stayed with them, and while he was staying there, he was learning some really important secrets that they knew, these wise philosophers and wise men of Damascus. During his stay with these wise Arab men, he sometimes overheard some discussions where they were talking about a group of mystics and Kabbalists that were living in a mysterious Arab city called Damkar. And here's an important side note. This Damkar in many texts actually has been translated as Damascus, which is totally wrong, because Damkar, actually, we don't know where it is located. All the information that we know about this mystical Damkar is that it's an Arab city, and that's all. So up to nowadays, we don't really know where on the map it is and if it really actually existed. After overhearing these conversations about these really smart men who lived in this mystical Damkar, he started to ask his hosts, maybe I can join you if you go to meet these wise men in Damkar. And at the end, he convinced them and he joined them into this trip to Damkar. There, once they reached Damkar, these mysterious Damkar wise men actually welcomed CRC with opened arms. And I don't know why, but according to the text, again, they decided that they should share their all secrets and wisdoms with this CRC guy. At this point, according to the manifesto, CRC is only 16 years old. So he's staying basically there with these philosophers and smart Arab men. He learns Arabic, and he also manages to translate the Book of Dead into Latin. And at the end, he also manages to bring this translation to Europe. The manifesto says that he spent in Damkar in total 3 years, and afterwards he moved to Fes. There in Fes, he again meets some Arab this time wizards. And these wizards again decide to share all of their secrets with Father CRC. They teach him how to handle elements, they teach him about nature's spirits. So basically, now he also knows how to access Mother Nature's secrets. After spending 2 years in Fez, he moves on then to Spain. There in Spain, the Spanish wise men were not as welcoming as he wanted them to be. So he soon after decides that it's time to go back to home, and he returns back to Germany. In his home country, Germany, he would build himself a house, and he would become this like house hermit. He would not go out and communicate with people. Instead, he would just stay in and would totally dedicate himself into like self-study and also do a lot of experiments. And for these experiments, allegedly, he created some really weird tools that were not characteristic for that time. And he would not communicate with anyone, as I said. And according to the manifesto, the only entity with whom he was communicating during that time was God. So after 5 years of solitude in his house, he decided that it's finally time to start the Reformation that was mentioned at the beginning of the manifesto. And in order to carry out this Reformation, he decided that probably it's time to attract more people into this process of reformation. Father CRC wanted to surround himself only with smart and intellectual people, so he involved 3 monks from the monastery where he was staying when he was a child, and he took an oath from them. And they were supposed to promise that they would never reveal anything that Father CRC is about to reveal to them. And also they were supposed to write down everything that Father CRC is asking them to write down. And according to the manifesto, Father CRC and these 3 monks were the ones who formed and founded the Fraternity of the Rosicrucians. They created secret codes and nomenclature for the secrets and wisdom they were writing down. They even started to work on the interpretation of the Book of the Dead that Father CRC had already done while he was in this Arab city. However, at one point it became too much work because they were also treating sick people, and they were simply flocking to their house because these guys, they could help them. So the members of the fraternity decided to call the house where they stayed and also where they received the sick people and treated them the House of the Holy Spirit. And at this moment, they also decided that they would add additional 4 members to the order. So now they were 8. And all of them were not married and totally dedicated to the purpose. And the purpose was this reformation and being dedicated to the Fraternity of the Rosicrucians. All of the members, all 8 of them, were tirelessly working on creating different documents and descriptions and instructions, all of the things that Father CRC was asking them to write down. And at one point, they decided to split and go different ways into the world. So basically, the main goal was to go to different countries to spread the message, and also thinking and doing, kind of like also considering other viewpoints about different important topics. And once per year, they were supposed to meet in this House of the Holy Spirit just to share their experiences, what they have seen. And Father CRC would be always in this House of the Holy Spirit, waiting for the rest of the brothers and just listening, perceiving, and they would be like discussing probably the things and making conclusions or maybe writing down something. But before they parted their ways from the House of the Holy Spirit and went out into the world, they created themselves like 6 rules that they had to obey. And they really had to obey them once they were out there. So the first rule was that any kind of healing that somebody was asking to perform on them can be done only if the brother himself feels like doing that, and they should never take money or any kind of material thing in return to this healing that they will perform to that person. The second rule was that they should never wear any kind of special robes with whom they would stand out as the members of the fraternity. They would be wearing like ordinary clothes and basically blend in with the rest of the people. The third rule was considering the fact that once per year they had to come back to the house of the Holy Spirit and report to Father CRC. And this rule said that they have to like come to the house of the Holy Spirit once per year, but if they cannot do that, then they have to inform the rest of the members and Father CRC in the form of a letter. The fourth rule was that each member of the fraternity have to prepare a successor. So in case they die, the successor has to take their place. The fifth rule states that they, from the moment that they enter the fraternity, would never have their name. Basically, their name would now consist of initials RC. So that would be their signature, that would be their seal, like anywhere where they're going, they are basically RC. And the last rule states that the existence of the fraternity must be kept a secret for the following 100 years. So all in all of the 7 members would go out in the world, get some more knowledge, get some more viewpoints, and Father CRC would always stay in the house of the Holy Spirit in Germany, and once per year all of them would meet there. When the first member of the fraternity died in England, they also decided that they would keep a secret the place where they would bury the member of the order. And this brings us to another very important secret, namely the death of Father CRC himself. It is believed that Father CRC actually prepared himself a special tomb in the house of the Holy Spirit, and allegedly this is also where the initial founders of the fraternity are buried. But all of this is actually kept a secret, and even the successors of the initial members did not really know at what point Father CRC died and how he died, and they didn't even know that he's dead, actually. He just like disappeared and they accepted it. And allegedly, some of the brothers, like on the later generations, accidentally found out that Father CRC had died, and they accidentally found this alleged tomb of him. So one of the brothers of the order was very passionate about architecture, and he wanted to renovate the house of the Holy Spirit, and he started to make some measurements in the house. And this is when he suddenly bumped into this kind of like a sign that had all of the names of the initial founders of the Fraternity of Rosicrucian. So this brother then tried to take off this sign, and it simply shattered into pieces, revealing a secret door. Yes, very mysterious. And this door was leading to a tomb. And by the entrance into this tomb, there was a sign that said, Post CXX annos patebo. Yes, I'm also getting chills. This sounds like some kind of mystery horror movie. Now, according to the interpretation of the fraternity, this sign meant, and I quote, I will be reborn after 120 years. So when this door was opened to this tomb, they entered into this like space, a room, call it whatever, that had 7 corners and 7 walls. And despite the fact that there was no windows and sun never shone into this premises, there was a lot of natural light, and it looked like this premises was like enlightened. In the center, there was a round altar that had copper plates with some text on them. Each of 7 walls had a door, and these doors led to premises that were full to the ceiling with books, documents, scripts containing secrets, instructions, all of which, according to the legend, once were lost. And then they got curious. They approached the altar, they took off the top of the altar, and under there lied a body. And according to the legend, this body belonged to, can you guess? Father CRC. And despite the fact that he had been like lying there for around 120 years, he looked so fresh, as if he was just like lying there and napping. Nothing had changed about his appearance. He looked so alive, still dead. Father CRC in this grave was dressed in a special fraternity robe. In one hand, he was holding a Bible, but in the other hand, he was holding a very valuable document of the Rosicrucian fraternity. The brothers closed the tomb again so that it stays like it was before, and they continued about their daily lives as usual, but this time they knew inside that all of the legend from the manifesto is true. Father CRC really has all of this knowledge written down, and all of these secrets are there safe with him by his tomb. So, crazy story, right? Really inspiring. Fama Fraternitatis ends up with words saying that all of the people who will be working in the favor of God are very welcome to reach out to the fraternity and become part of this reformation and become part of these secrets and wisdom. But all of the people who are big egoists and who just want to join the fraternity in order to learn the secrets for selfish reasons will only receive sorrow and sadness. Many people do believe that all of this crazy story really happened. Sounds like a script for some kind of movie, right? But yes, they believe that Father CRC actually existed, that he had all of this journey and he founded this fraternity. However, there is one thing, there is no real proof that any of this really happened. There is no real proof except for these manifestos that Father CRC existed. As we already discussed, we don't even know where Damkar is, and is it really a real place? Somewhere in some other Arab countries? I don't know. And we don't even know how really Father CRC looked. We just know that he was traveling and then they found his tomb. There exist a couple of portraits that allegedly are the portraits of Father CRC, and one of them is actually created by Rembrandt, and it's called A Man in Armor. But we don't have anything to compare with this. There's no description with which we can compare this. So we actually don't really know how Father CRC looked. And also, the house of the Holy Spirit, the house where Father CRC was constantly sitting and doing all of his stuff, there is no real proof that a building like this existed in Germany. Some people draw parallels with Father CRC and some kind of German nobleman named Christian Rosenkranz. However, there is actually no real proof that would link Father CRC to this Christian Rosenkranz. And to be honest, this Christian Rosenkranz theory is the most discussed theory in any other YouTube videos that are talking about how the Rosicrucians appeared on this earth. But my strongest belief, and if you would dig deeper, you would understand that Father CRC actually was not Christian Rosenkranz. Now, let's look into the second version. So this version has some links with Freemasons. We will discuss it a little bit further, that Rosicrucians actually have some links with Freemasons, allegedly, right? So Freemasons actually acknowledge that the fraternity of the Rose Cross or Rosicrucians do exist, but even their opinions among the Freemasons kind of divide. They are not really agreeing on how the fraternity actually was founded. So let's look into some of the versions that are pushed forward by some of the Freemasons, some of the groups of Freemasons that were looking into the beginnings of Rosicrucians. So one group of Freemasons who looked into this topic consider Rosicrucian fraternity to be created in the Middle Ages, because that was the time when the interest into alchemy really raised. So the believers of this theory say that the founder of the fraternity was actually a man whose name was Johannes Valentinus Andrea. So he was a German theologist, and he actually claimed that he was the author of one of the three most important Rosicrucian manifestos, namely the last one. So that we don't get confused, the first was Fama Fraternitatis that we already discussed about the whole journey of the father CRC. The second manifesto was called Confessio Fraternitatis, and the third one was called Chemical Wedding of Christian Rosencrantz. So this Johannes was allegedly the author of this last one. But there are many controversies in regards to this Johannes guy, and also if he really wrote it. We will get to that a little bit further. Just keep this in mind and let's continue. Some other groups of researchers from the Freemasons are pushing forward this idea that actually Rosicrucians and the ideas of Rosicrucians can be traced back as far as the time of ancient Egypt. I will elaborate a little bit on this since I also listened a little bit to a lecture, very interesting one by a Russian philosopher and theologist, Leonid Matzich, and he talked about this theory in quite a detail, and he said that this idea can be traced back to ancient Egypt at around the time of 1500 BCE. And during that time, there were some special esoteric schools there that would gather together people who were interested in mysticism, wisdoms, and also more specifically into death. Now, in this lecture where he was looking into this ancient Egypt theory, he said that not anyone could join these special esoteric schools. They had to undergo certain tests so that they can convincingly join these esoteric schools. And here we see the first tendencies of some kind of initiations happening. You had to appear in certain chambers in specially made temples that were created for this initiation purpose. So it was alleged that these initiations were really, really harsh because they had to face death. For example, there was this like special ritual that they were participating in, and this ritual was dedicated to Osiris, which is known to be the god of afterlife and death. The potential members were put into a stone grave and left there for 2 days without food, water, light, like no contact with people, and they didn't know that actually somebody's picking up them from there after 2 days. So they were just basically lying there and like maybe praying that somebody will get them out at some point. And there's also this chance that they will be just like left there. Some people couldn't bear this and they actually died there. And if you survived this, then you were like a person reborn and you were accepted into this esoteric schools, and all the knowledge, all the wisdom was now available for you. Here's another very interesting side note. According to the Rosicrucian traditions, it is assumed that even Egyptian pyramids of Giza, for example, are not the tombs of pharaohs, as we already are getting suspicious nowadays. But that these pyramids are actually those specially built temples where they would perform these different rituals and initiation rituals. These esoteric schools started to become more and more popular. The word was spreading, and it also traveled outside Egypt. And this is the moment when some interested persons from other countries were also coming to Egypt and wanted to also become part of these esoteric schools. And this is where names like Thales and Pythagoras appear, and they were actually traveling to Egypt, allegedly, where they were initiated and became members of these esoteric schools, where they learned all of the knowledge that they were afterwards spreading in Europe. And through all of these people who were coming from other countries to learn these wisdoms and philosophies, later on, this elevated knowledge was spread in the Western countries. And this was the basis of the foundation of Rosicrucians in Europe. Now, fast forward to medieval time, Europe, in the sense of mysticism, was in total darkness. If somebody was practicing something like alchemy, it was condemned. You were most probably burned on stake. Meanwhile, Arab civilization was blossoming and developing in these matters. They had preserved all the wisdom and teachings in textual form because they worked on translating ancient texts talking about these wisdoms. For example, they translated texts from Egypt's Alexandria's library, and they had it all: philosophy, medicine, mathematics, and alchemy. All of this was important and preserved in these libraries and later transmitted to Europe by way of Arabs. Alchemy, the art of transmutation. This will become the key thing in regards to Rosicrucians, and all of this was introduced to them via Arabs. And here I would like to take a side note. So when we talk about alchemy, we think about people who turn metal into gold, but actually there is more to it. Alchemy can also deal with transmutation of human character and soul or spirit, call it how you want. European alchemists and Knights Templar, in contact with the Arab civilization at the time of the Crusades, brought much of this wisdom to the West. In Europe, the transcendental alchemists, mystics, and philosophers sought to transmute the base elements of human character into more noble virtues and to release the wisdom of the divine self within the individual. One of the renowned alchemists of that time, actually, I already mentioned in my videos about Kozyrev mirror. If you haven't seen that video, go check that out. It's very interesting. But in general, to sum up, even if you haven't watched that video, all of the things that these people were practicing, like Roger Bacon, it was condemned, and everything that they created was simply smashed into pieces, and most of these people were simply prosecuted of being witches or wizards, and like, you're a bad person. And then there's another note about alchemy. There is another side of transmutation of human. They were looking into how making the soul immortal and prolong person's life. They were trying to make it possible so that when the body dies, the soul still continues to live. And I think this would be a very interesting topic that I could dive into my following videos, like to look into this kind of alchemy from the perspective of Rosicrucians. And so after this time, Renaissance appeared, and suddenly everyone was interested in science and arts, and alchemy became this very, very popular thing that everyone was trying to look into. And this is the time when suddenly in Germany, this manifesto that we talked about, Fama Fraternitatis, appeared in the right time. Now, going back to other theories of Rosicrucian origins coming from Freemasons, large group believes that the story of CRC, similarly like the legend of Hiram Abiff for Freemasons, must be regarded as an allegory and should not by no means be considered literally. Just think about it, so much time has passed and still up to nowadays, everyone's confused about how it really happened, and is it really real? Is it just an allegory? I think Rosicrucians are doing a very good job to hide their existence in general. I think they're the most secret society in the world. The same applies to Rosicrucian members. There is no secret that influential philosophers and scientists were considered to be linked to Rosicrucians. However, there is no real proof. Among them were names like, for example, Francis Bacon and Wolfgang von Goethe. However, no historians have found real proof to that. This just means that the real Rosicrucians somehow managed to maintain their membership a secret and carried the secret to the grave. In the book written by Franz Hartmann called Secret Symbols of Rosicrucians, he describes the fraternity as society of people who actually have some superhuman and supernatural powers. powers. He wrote that it was alleged that the members of the fraternity could foresee the future, they could access the secrets of Mother Nature, and of course turn the metal into gold. They also could create the elixir of life and universal panacea to cure everyone from any kind of diseases. And all of these things helped them to maintain their youthfulness. So almost like they could not die, or if they died, their souls were still alive. Like crazy, all of the typical things that you would think about in relation to secret society. Besides, it was rumored that they could command the elements of nature and also knew the secrets of the philosopher's stone, which could make a person immortal and very wise. And for real, if you look into the symbols of the Fraternity of the Rose Cross, you can see how all of this makes sense. Like, these diagrams and pictures like really depict the most important cosmic and philosophic principles. Speaking about symbols, let's look into those a little bit before we move on to the other theories of the beginnings of Rosicrucians. And so the rose. Rose is the symbol of Yoni. In Sanskrit, it is the representation of the goddess Shakti, and this is associated with birth and fertility. The way the rose opens up from a bud to a flower is a symbol of spiritual development. The red color represents the blood of Christ, and the golden heart in the middle of the flower represents the spiritual gold, namely the spirituality that is hiding within yourself and has to be open from inside of your heart. The amount of the rose petals is 10, which is a reminder of the perfection. And actually, rose has been a religion-related symbol since ancient times, if we look at it. There is another very interesting theory, like in general, we think that the name Rosicrucians was created by putting together two things, rose and cross. But there is another theory that was pushed forward by a man named Godfrey Higgins, and he suggested that the first part of the name comes not from the word rose, but from the word ros, meaning dew. And Higgins was not the only author who was kind of pushing forward this theory. There are more who agree with him. And the idea was behind this dew is that it's actually related to the philosopher's stone, because alchemists believe that if you collect the dew at certain like parts of the year, or I don't know, like how they were calculating this certain day. If you knew this day when you had to collect this dew, then this dew had some certain properties, and then this dew could be used in creation of the philosopher's stone. And they wanted to like carry this meaning into the name of the fraternity, and then this means that the rose part actually means dew, not the rose, which is kind of interesting, but I would probably think it's more like rose. Otherwise, why would they put a rose on their symbol? I don't know. Write down in comments, do you believe that this could be dew, not rose? Many people believe that the cross symbolizes the human body, and the rose that is attached to the cross with three nails symbolizes the soul that is attached to the human body. Now, going back to the Freemasons a little bit, I told you I'm gonna come back to that. So there is actually belief that Freemasons came out of Rosicrucians, that Rosicrucians decided to create like this separate let's say department, a modern term for that, that would be more kind of involved with like earthly things, with people, and then they decided, okay, we're gonna create Freemasons, and they're gonna be like more present and more interacting with people, and we're just gonna stay here very spiritual. But afterwards, allegedly, they regretted their decision of creating Freemasons, and they started to like distance themselves from Freemasons, and also took away all of the secrets and documents that they were about to share with Freemasons. So at the end, like Freemasons kinda developed from Rosicrucians, but at the end they became a separate part that was not even related to Rosicrucians. You see how much confusion is there if you start to really dig in into the history of Rosicrucians. Yeah, you are so confused. But there is one fact, and it remains a fact, that with the appearance of Freemasons, the fraternity of Rose Cross completely disappeared from Europe. Is it a coincidence? I don't know. You tell me in the comments. Let's now go on to the third theory of the beginnings of Rosicrucians. And this theory basically states that Rosicrucians never existed, that all of this is basically like a fruit of imagination of some kind of person. Let me explain. Now, believers of this theory think that all of these three manifestos and all of this fuss around Rosicrucians was basically, as I said, a fruit of imagination of some kind of cynical author who created all of this and wrote all of this just to make fun of the people who believed in alchemy and mysticism and all of these things. So the believers of this theory say that Fama and Confesso were actually written by Sir Francis Bacon, and they say that the rhetoric used in both of the manifestos is very similar to that of Sir Francis Bacon. And they also say that they see some like symbolism from Rosicrucians in Bacon's work called New Atlantis. And then remember the third manifesto, that was the chemical wedding of Christian Rosencrantz, allegedly was written by some other German theologists that I already mentioned. So maybe all of these three works were just like simple prose work that you just read and get inspired. I don't know. In fact, the idea of secrecy of Rosicrucians became a popular topic for different authors. For example, it was believed that Lord Bulwer Lytton was believed to be a Rosicrucian. However, some historians believe he just wanted to be a member but was not accepted. So he wrote about it in his book Zanoni, that has a lot of Rosicrucian references. So what I'm saying with this theory is that if we speak it in modern terms, maybe that was like some kind of trend of that time. And since people were buying it and they like to read about these secret societies, they just continued to write books and different prose works about this. Or there's another option. Maybe these authors who were including Rosicrucian symbols in their books, as I mentioned, Sir Francis Bacon, maybe they were like the old versions of some kind of whistleblowers who like were putting some things into their books saying like something exists. I cannot tell you everything, but like here are some hints about that. Last version deals with the supernatural. The believers think that Rosicrucians have some supernatural powers and that they were like citizens of two worlds. Their bodies were present in materialistic world, but thanks to the knowledge and instructions received from the Fraternity of the Rose and Cross, they were also able to function in this mysterious body of ether. So this other world where they were existing in this ether was not influenced by time or any kind of orders. And it is believed that actually the temple, the house of the Holy Spirit, actually exists in this ether. This is the place where they would all meet in this special kind of condition, in this special spiritual and astral form. According to this theory, Rosicrucians actually consisted only of few members, and they were like high-level adepts that were immortal, and they like knew everything. They were so wise, and if they wanted to take a new member, then this member again had to undergo a lot of like tests and initiations, which kind of also again reminds us again about the ancient Egypt and their initiation rituals. And allegedly these high-level adepts. They knew all of the secrets, as I said, also the secrets about Philosopher's Stone. And furthermore, which is very important, they were like teaching that turning metal into gold should not be perceived literally. So what they are saying is that um, this should be perceived as an allegory, meaning this metal to gold is a symbol of rebirth from the lower nature of humans, the metal, to higher spiritual and intellectual possibilities, the gold. And I think this explains a lot, like why the search for the real Rosicrucians has always been unsuccessful. It's because we are looking at the things that they have written down literally in the physical world, but all of the things that were written down actually are hiding in more like spiritual level. Legend goes that the adepts could teach a person how to leave their physical body. Namely, they taught that the spiritual nature of the human is attached to the physical body. And it is said that there were 3 alchemical initiations performed in this spiritual world, in this house of Holy Spirit that was existing in this spiritual world. And after they performed all 3 of these rituals, the soul was kind of could leave the physical body and was like free to roam into this etheric world. Anyways, the deal is that all of these things like getting the Philosopher's Stone, etc., were basically like secret codes or metaphors with higher meanings, which leads us to understand that only the people who could withstand the challenges of the material world could join the Rosicrucians. And by saying like spiritual world and rebirth, we sometimes think about reincarnation, which is actually a thing. But in regards to this reincarnation, there's another theory that I not necessarily believe in relation to Rosicrucians. So remember I told you about Christian Rosencrantz? I don't really believe that he was Father CRC, but you know, the people who believe, believe. The believers in this theory of the reincarnation and Christian Rosencrantz say that actually Christian Rosencrantz was actually a reincarnation of some other like very wise person, and that this person who was reincarnated into Christian Rosencrantz was Count Saint-Germain. If you know, you know. This Count Saint-Germain, he's a huge mystery. There's a long legend surrounding him. Like, we don't even know if he existed. Kind of similar to Rosicrucians, right? But I think he's like a huge hoax, and I think it has already been proven. Anyways, if you want me to dive into Count Saint-Germain's story, let me know in the comments and I'm going to do that. But yeah, like they believe that like it started from even like the time when Jesus was present on earth, and then there was reincarnation, Count Saint-Germain, and ended up with Christian Rosencrantz. I don't believe that theory, but I'm just like putting it out there, all right? Now, let's go back to the 17th century and Francis Bacon's New Atlantis. Allegedly, this work inspired Rosicrucians to expand also towards the America. According to the webpage of one of the America's branches of public Rosicrucians called AMORC, aka the Rosicrucian Order, some Rosicrucian leaders went to create a colony across the Atlantic Ocean. They had a specially chartered vessel, the Sara Maria, under the leadership of Johannes Kelpius, master of a Rosicrucian lodge in Europe. They landed in Philadelphia and then moved to Pennsylvania. The Rosicrucian communities made valuable contributions to the newly emerging American culture in the fields of printing, philosophy, sciences, and arts. And in fact, it's rumored that even names like Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, and Thomas Paine were also linked to these initial Rosicrucians. So I don't know. That's just a rumor, but I'm just putting out there. Now, as I already mentioned, one of the like widely known Rosicrucian branches in America is this AMORC that I already mentioned. They have a very nice webpage with a lot of information. So if you're interested, you can certainly go there. I'm going to put this on the description box. And I actually enjoyed that webpage. I don't know how much they are related to the initial fraternity, if it actually was like physical one, as we all already established, but yeah, still interesting. And I guess here I would like to put a full stop. It's been a wild ride, actually, and I would really like to develop this topic further. So let me know in the comments. I'm going to make some series about the theories that Rosicrucians were looking into. So it's really interesting. I actually have this book. Like this. It's in Russian. It's an encyclopedia dealing with all of these things. I got it from my husband's father's library. It has all of the symbols and all of the information, like alchemy and stuff. So interesting. So I'm ready to dive into this. I actually dived into this while I was preparing today's video. Very valuable book. So let me know if you want me to go even deeper with this. That being said, thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the research process of it. Write down a comment, of course. Support me with your likes. Subscribe if you haven't. Press the notification bell. Share this video with anyone who would be interested into this topic. And of course, if you want to support me even more, here's my Patreon link. There are several tiers. You can give me some little donations or even subscribe to like monthly subscription. That being said, I'm shouting out to David Craig, who has always been there for me, like my first Patreon. I will always mention you in my videos, I guess. So if you also want to be mentioned, do subscribe to my Patreon. Your name will also be announced here, and I will probably invent some more like things that I could do so that you are more happier and feel appreciated for supporting me. I hope you have a lovely day. Stay happy, stay curious, and see you next time.